Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today, we've definitely got a pretty interesting combination to test. And it's one that I have some decently high hopes for, because the last time we tested this shell, it did surprisingly decent, all things considered. So with today's combo that has performed well with shells that are similar to this before, maybe we might see another pretty decent pattern out of it. But for the shell we've got out here today, it's another one that BG sent us. So big thank you to him for sending a bunch of shells over. But I brought out one of these. This is an old school Remington Premier Hevi-Shot Magnum shell. It's a 3.5 inch, 1 7/8 ounce load of Hevi-Shot number 4. Now I don't have the box for these, but I'll put the picture of the box up and the velocity claim up here in the corner if I can find it, because I can't remember what they claim off the top of my head. But definitely a pretty interesting loading that they don't make anymore. And from what I understand, Hevi-Shot used to kind of pattern with Remington. So this is kind of their culmination of shell, I guess. And the last time we tested one of these shells, they did surprisingly decent, especially since Remington and Hevi-Shot shells nowadays have been very hit or miss for us. And as for the setup we've got to run them through today, I brought out the Mossberg 835 here, but for a choke, I went with the stock 710 turkey full choke that this gun came with. So being a 710, it is a little bit more open than some of your aftermarket chokes, but for being a factory turkey choke, this one has done surprisingly well with a lot of different shells we've put through it, especially ones that are a little bit larger like number 4s or 5s. So I figured that this is a non-ported choke, a little bit more open, a little bit more breathing room for these 4s, and at least on paper, I think this should do pretty decently as for a combination, but we're just gonna have to test it and see, I suppose. But as for the test today, everything is the same as usual. The turkey target is at 40 yards, and I have the chronograph out here as well, so we will be able to get our velocity out of this shell. So let's get you guys a view of the target. We'll take the shot, look at the chrono, and then go look at our results. I have some decently high hopes for these, but it is a Remington / Hevi-Shot shell, and those two individually have not been known to be fantastic performers, but I still have some decently high hopes considering the last time we tested a shell like this. So let's go over here and shoot it and just see what kind of results we can get with it through this stock 710 choke today in the 835. Okay, so that shell gave us 1206 through the chronograph. I think, if my brain is working correctly this morning, that these are claiming 1250. I will correct myself on the screen if I'm wrong, but if that's the case, then we are a little bit under their claim. But either way, 1206 is still right in the ballpark where I would kind of expect and want these shells to be at. So I don't think there's anything too strange going on up here as far as our velocity goes. But how does our pattern actually look? Let's go down to 40 yards and check it out. Alright, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And we do have a dead turkey here. There is one through the brain, and a couple more that just clipped the spine. So we would have gotten the turkey. But looking at the overall pattern here, as you can probably already tell, it is pretty wide and pretty splotchy. So immediately I can tell you that I think that these older Remington Hevi-Shot shells definitely prefer a little bit more constriction, even though they are a little bit larger shot size being number 4s, because they definitely did way better through, I believe it was the Kick 680 that we tried them through last time. Now with that being said, overall, is this still a capable turkey pattern at 40 yards? Yes, but with how many holes and gaps and splotchiness and stuff this pattern has, I don't know that I'd really want to push it much farther than that. The overall pattern might have favored just a touch to the right, but if we get up close here, you can just see how many pretty big holes are all over this pattern. I mean, there's a big one right up there. The main one I'm looking at is a whole entire strip right down the right edge of that turkey paper there, where he could fit his whole head and neck area right in that little gap there and might be able to get away from you. So definitely not a super even or pretty looking pattern. Technically, yes, it is still good enough to get the job done for you, but not nearly as good as what we've seen out of it previously. So I think these are just gonna like that tighter constriction a little bit better. But I guess if nothing else, we really don't see any flyers necessarily. It's just a much more broad and open pattern. So I don't know. It's not the worst Hevi-Shot and or Remington pattern we've ever seen by a long shot, actually, but it's far from the best as well. I guess this is kind of in that middle ground again, where sure, it's good enough. Would I use it? Probably not. And I think that's probably the same sentiment that a lot of you guys are going to think as well. So mixed results on this one, I suppose. Good enough, but not pretty at the same time, that's for sure. Okay, and here's the wad from that shell, and as you can see, it is one of these 5-petal wads, which you don't see a whole lot in turkey shells, at least nowadays. A lot of the ones now are 4 petals, and this is 5, but it did open up relatively evenly, all things considered, and clearly nothing stuck down in there or anything, no rips or tears, or anything else I'd be concerned with, and looks pretty much run-of-the-mill average, definitely nothing special. So not really a whole lot to take note of on this one. I think it did about as good as what it could have done through today's setup anyway. I just think it wants more constriction, which is not too surprising, especially with how this wad looks, because we're definitely not over constricted, that's for sure. So nothing really too special to take note of out of this wad. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern there? Is it good enough to get you the turkey? Sure, it is, but it's definitely not pretty. There are a ton of larger gaps and voids in there that I really don't like to see. And just looking at how that pattern actually performed on the paper and seeing how it performed when we previously tested these shells, I just think these want a little bit more constriction. But that's why we test things to figure out, well, what is the shell like or not like? Because it could have really done well with a little bit more open constriction. We just didn't know until we tested it. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Or a little bit surprised one way or the other? Have you ever shot, hunted with, tested, or anything like that? Any of these older Remington Hevi-Shot Magnum shells or anything? They have a couple different shot sizes and versions and stuff. So if you have tested any, then what kind of results have you seen? And do they tend to like a little bit more tighter choke constriction as well? Let me know all that down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox if you'd like to send something into the channel. So if you're interested in any of that information, it'll all be in the description for you. But I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.